Hi there, welcome to Transcona Trailer Sales. Today I'm going to be walking you through your 2025 Rpod 198. We are just going to start off the back of the unit. If you notice up top, you are pre-wired for an observation camera, as well as a Rpod collapsible stair system. If you want to get set up with either of those, you can contact the parts department. Both a great little addition to your camper. Also located at the back is your spare tire. And then you got your cable satellite inlet in case you wanted to plug anything in there. And you got your main power cord inlet. It's a twist lock 30 amp connection. You just take a note of that notch there. It lines up with this notch on this side. Press that into place firmly, 8th turn to lock it in, and then you got that threaded collar to really lock it down. If you follow that cord back, you do have your standard 30 amp plug in. Most campsites should have this and you can plug right on in. But let's say you have the unit at home and you want to run your fridge, or your campsite only has 15 amp service, which is your typical household outlet. We do include that park adapter. Just keep it in mind when you're going down to 15 amps of power, you can't run your air conditioner. It really is just to run your fridge, your lights, charge up your battery. We've got a 2-inch receiver right down below here, but keeping in mind the weight capacity for that is about 250 pounds. So really you're just putting a bike rack on there, so keep that in mind. Got your furnace exhaust, so whenever that's on, it's gonna be blowing out hot air, so just be mindful of that. And then inside your bumper cap, squeeze in that cap like it says. Typically that's gonna be where you wanna store your sewer hose after your first use. We do include a brand new one located inside the front compartment, which I'll go over once we get there. It's where you're gonna wanna store it. Just keeps most of the smell out of the unit. You got your stabilizer jack. The way that works is you get your 3/4 inch drive nut, hooking up the 3/4 inch drive tool, which is again located inside that front compartment. Running this foot down to the ground. Once the foot contacts the ground, just giving another 1/8 quarter turn to snug it up. It's gonna take any bounce or sway you see we have in the unit right now away. And just a couple little notes. They are stabilizing jacks, they're not leveling jacks. So please don't try and use them as that, as you do run the risk of bending them. And then whenever you're running them up and down, if you are using a cordless impact, just keep in mind how much torque you put on them. It's pretty easy to bend them, so just, again, keeping that in mind. Coming a little further ahead, you got your main sewer outlet, twisting that cap off. You're just taking note of those 2 ears there. It's the same 2 ears that your sewer hose have. They just line up like so and click and lock into place. You got your gray valve up here, black valve back here. You're always gonna wanna empty that black valve first. This is gonna be your dirtiest water filled from your toilets, and then you can come behind that with your gray valve. Just typically a little cleaner water filled from your sinks and your showers. You got your 2 low point drains here. So if you don't want the water going stale or stagnant, you can crack these guys open, in which case they are already, and it's gonna drain most of the fluid that's inside the lines out. It's also a good note to do that once you're done winterizing, just to keep a little less antifreeze inside those lines. Got your black tank flush, so the way that works is threading a garden hose in there, turning on. That's just gonna help with any false monitor panel readings if you're having any. It also helps if you're noticing an odor, but whenever you're using it, making sure you're noting the caution sticker. You do have to have the black tank hooked up and the valve open. Reason being, if you're pushing pressure inside the tank and that pressure's got nowhere to go, it could expand that tank to the point of cracking. So just being mindful of that. Got a motion sensing light here, so if you fill up the docket emptying at night, at least you can see what you're doing. Got your fresh water connection, so if you're out boondocking or your campsite doesn't have water service, put a garden hose in there, fill it up, and that's what fills your fresh tank, and that's what your water pump draws off of. Right down below, you do have your drain. Taking that cap off, it's gonna drain all the water that's inside that fresh tank out. Then you got your city water connection, so if you're out of sight with service, you can just throw a garden hose in there, turn it on, pressurizes all those lines without the need to run your water pump. Storage compartment right at the front, and then you got 2 screws on this false panel here. It's got a sticker that even says antifreeze inlet. That is where you're gonna get access to your water pump for winterization. There'll be a little hose connected to it, just following it back to that bypass valve, so you can turn that and get that sucking in properly. Battery right at the front here, and then you do have a battery disconnect switch with it on position like it is now. The batteries are connected to the unit. If you were to turn it to the off position, the batteries would become disconnected from the unit. In addition to that, it does also completely disable the 12-volt system. So if you ever plug in, you get to your campsite and you're wondering why your lights aren't working, it's probably because this disconnect switch is on. So just making sure you do have it on whenever you're using it. Right at the front, you got your propane tank. It's housed inside this cover here. Typically, just flipping the cover back, you got your standard 20-pound tank down there, counterclockwise all the way like any standard barbecue to open up the flow of propane. You got running propane, and to get this cover off, it's just as simple as loosening off this wing nut. The cover is going to pop right out of place, and then that's how you get access to that pump tank. Up and down, a little light in case you were docking at night. Coming around this side of the unit, opening up this one. You got that standard starter kit. You're just gonna have that 10-foot sewer hose, which I've already told you about. It also comes with a 15-foot water hose, the 15-amp park adapter I told you about, and some other miscellaneous goodies. Also inside, you got your manual override for your tongue jack in case that were to fail. And of course, the 3/4-inch drive tool, which I've already told you about. And inside this compartment, you get USB, USB-C charging, and then you got this little switch. Turning that on, turns on some nice accent lights at the front of the trailer. Probably can't see them right now because it's pretty bright out. That's it for inside there. A little further down the unit, got your service port for your hot water heater. Taking that, flipping that guy open. A couple things you need to note about this water heater is it is a tankless system. So if you've had a trailer prior to this and you did the winterizing yourself, you're probably going to be familiar with some bypass valves. That would be for a tanked system. Because this is tankless, if there is bypass valves behind here, you do not touch them. There shouldn't be any. You do run antifreeze through the system. Of course, with it being off, the off switch is just right here. Turning that off disables the thermostat inside. Turning it on supplies power to it. Once you're done your winterization process completely, cracking this pressure relief valve and leaving it cracked open for the duration of winter. That way, when that antifreeze starts to gel up, it has a place to go. Whenever you're closing it, this little rubber gasket, always just making sure you kind of place it before you completely lock it in. That way it sits on there nice. And then inside this compartment here, opening it up, you got your little spray hose. Taking that over here, pulling down, it's gonna flip open. You're just taking note of the notch on either side on this end. Lines up with the notches on this side. Press, lock, twist it into place. Then you'd have hot and cold water, sprayable. You can also interchange this with another sprayer of your choice. It's just your standard garden hose end. And then up top, right above your kitchen, your little window here, you got this range hood flap. Whenever you get to your campsite, opening that guy up. That way you're evacuating those fumes as you need to. And of course, whenever you're traveling, locking it and clipping it back into place. That way you're not getting any excess dust inside the unit. To get inside, which is the best part, pushing the assist handle, pushing it up, holding it 90 degrees, it's gonna lock into place. It will allow you to open up your door. You do have to open up the door all the way, get your stairs down. Pulling this guy allows those stairs to fold forward. You do have adjustable campsite feet on either side, just pulling up on the black lever. It's gonna allow you to adjust those feet so you can go up the stairs. Now taking a step on inside, first thing you notice off on the right is that fire extinguisher. It's pretty simple, pull the pin and shoot. Up on the wall, you got all your kind of main controls. Interior light switch turns on all the main living space lights. Then you got your porch light switch, which turns on that little orange light on the outside. Then you do have an awning LED light. Next, we'll go over the awning, pushing and holding the extend button. The awning is going to make its way out. Once it's fully extended, you're going to see the back of the metal tube and the little flap hang down. Whenever you're pulling this guy out, always just keeping an eye on it and making sure you keep an eye on the wind speeds. Once they start picking up, you want to make sure you bring that in. You don't want to run the risk of ripping your fabric or bending your arms. And you got that flap, which sometimes does stick. It does happen time to time. Now that you got the back of the metal tube, you know you're fully extended. Now if it were to start raining, take any arm, front or rear, undo the clasp, push in on the arm, lock it back into place. It's going to change the pitch of the awning head, allowing water to now run off. Now if you like that angle better because it allows for more shade underneath, you can do the same thing with the front arm, but making sure before you ever bring the awning in, you're unloosening those clasps, allowing them back to their full extension. Before you go to bring it in, that way you don't run the risk of bending anything, and bringing it in is as simple as holding the retract button, making sure it's rolling the right way in. Once the arms contact the side of the trailer, the motors will automatically cut out. As that's coming in, if you've ever bring in this awning while it's wet because it's pooling up too much water or the wind starts to pick up, always making sure you put it back out at your next convenient time. That way you're not accelerating the growth of mold and mildew inside there. I'm not going to bore you with that though. You would just hold the retract button, motors will cut out once it hits back into the side of the trailer. You got your slide out button next, pushing and holding the out button. And before you ever do bring your awning in or out, always making sure you know what's on either side of the slide. The reason you're paying attention on the inside as well is sometimes things do tend to travel shift during travel, so making sure nothing's going to get caught between those slide outs. And on the other side, of course, making sure you have enough room for it. Once this slide out is at its full extension, you're going to hear the motors wind up and cut out. So you know you're at your full extension now. On this side of the wall here, you got your main monitor panel system. So you got all your different tanks and your battery level. Pushing the button will give you the corresponding level. You got your water pump option, turning that on, draws from your fresh tank, but if you're hooked up to city water, you do not have to use that. Next, to fire up your water heater, pushing on the water heater button, it's going to turn up the supply power to the thermostat. Pushing the thermostat on, you can change the temperature by pushing up and down. You can change it between Celsius and Fahrenheit with the press of a button. The water heater does run off propane, so you have to make sure your propane's on at the front of the unit. Right down below your main fuse breaker panel. Breaker trips, it's going to sit in the middle, so you do just have to turn it off and then back on again to reset it. You have all your corresponding fuses on the right. Now in this little area, you got your seating dinner area. It's also where the main fire exit is. Pulling this red tab will allow this screen to pop right out of place. At that point, you can take your handles, unclip them from the holders, push the window out. It's going to allow you to hop on out of the unit. Now, in addition to this being a seating area, in case you would have some extra guests, you can turn this out into a little bed. You're just having to remove the feet from the bottom of the table, set the tabletop on its desired ledges, take your back cushions, fill in the center, a little seating area, or a little sleeping area, in case, again, you had a guest. Got your recliner chairs on this side. Awesome little feature. They included these little dinner table style things. They also have a cup holder built in, and let's say they're kind of in your way, you don't want them there. They do pull right out of place without eliminating a cup holder, so you still keep that cup holder and they are reclining. You're just having to pull the black tab. It's going to make the foot the way out. All the blinds in the unit do work the same way. They just kind of sit where you leave them, and then one quick pull will allow them to retract back up. You've got your fridge in this corner here. Pushing in on the side to unlock it from its travel lock. It's going to allow you to open them up. You got your controller for your fridge, freezer right up top here. Obviously the coldest option, and then the cooler option, and then down below you're going to have your controls for your fridge. Pushing and holding the power button to turn it on or off. And then you have your different settings for the fridge. 1 being the coldest, the warmest setting, 5 being the coldest. It's also going to cool the fastest on 5. You got off-grid on number 2. That is going to be the most energy efficient setting to run it on whenever you're running off battery power, because this is a 12-volt fridge. Now on the wall here, you got your solar controller right up top. There's a bunch of different settings you can go into. It gets pretty in-depth. I'm going to recommend going over the owner's manual whenever you're wanting to. If you want to play with that a little bit, there's lots of settings you can go into. We do have it currently set up for just your basic charging needs. So if there's sun outside going onto those solar panels, it's going to be applying a charge to the front battery. Sometimes it's always good measure to go up top, making sure you're checking that solar panel and it's not dusty and dirty. And whenever you are cleaning it, just using hot water and a rag, a soft rag, so you don't want to scratch it up. Down below, you got your thermostat for your air conditioner. And before we go over that, the furnace does move all its air through the floor portals we have throughout the unit, and it has 1 fan speed. The air conditioner, multiple fan speeds, and it's got this louver. If you run this louver open, it's going to dump all its air into the main living space. Closing the louver off will allow it to move its air throughout the unit using the ceiling ducting. Using the thermostat, push and hold the power button. It's going to turn itself on. It's going to go to your last known setting. So in this case, it's going to be the heat. So your furnace will fire up if your room temperature is obviously set hotter than what it actually is. And when you go to turn it off, it does run for an additional 3 minutes as an added safety feature to allow itself to cool down. Coming over to the fan option, you got your different fan speeds. It's good just moving air around with the air conditioner, no heating or cooling involved. You do got low or high fan. dry, it's just a dehumidifying mode to try and take as much moisture out of the air as possible. And then you get to cool. Whenever you're in cool, up or down at any time to change your desired temperature. Now, if you have the fan speed in L, which is low, it's going to run full time regardless, and the same thing on high. But if you have it on A, which is automatic, it turns it into an on-demand system. So once the room reaches the thermostat, once the thermostat senses the room's at temperature, it's going to kill the air conditioner. And if you have it on low or high, it runs full time regardless. Pushing and holding the power button to turn that back off. Now, because this unit is equipped with propane, you got your LP detector right here near the ground. If this guy ever starts going off, don't panic. Just turn off the main supply of propane at the front of the unit and open up some windows and vents just to get some fresh oxygen inside here. And it is also very sensitive to cleaning chemicals. TV on the wall, nice little kitchen space. Rpod does include this cool little cutting board / sink cover in case you really want to use that. It does just hang on the wall whenever you're not using it. Convection oven down below, pretty standard, just like home. Not much I'm going to show you there. Next, you do come to your stove. Before we get into the stove, we'll go into a few things. If you ever turn off the main supply of propane, and especially disconnect the propane tank at the front, it allows air into the system. Once air is into the system and you reconnect the propane, sometimes, most times, it has to be purged, especially if it's been off for a while. So first thing I always recommend doing, if you've had the propane system off, come to your stove, fire that up. It's just the quickest, easiest method to purge all the air out, because if you were to go to fire up your furnace or your water heater, those only try lighting themselves a few times before they'll throw you a fault code, which could throw a little wrench into your weekend because it could just add some confusion. So just to avoid that, I always recommend firing up the stove first, pushing that knob in, turning it over to the high/light option. It does fire up. Illumination light knob option there too. Of course, it did fire up pretty quickly just because I had the propane system running earlier. Sometimes it can take a few minutes, so just be patient with it. And always making sure that igniter's going whenever the gas is open, because you don't want to have any build-up fumes. Whenever you're using any of the storage all around this unit, just always being careful of drains, water lines, and wiring. You don't want to be messing with any of that. Walking into the bathroom, first thing you notice, you got a travel strap on the door. The reason it's there is whenever that travel strap's not on, it allows that door to travel freely. So if you're traveling, it could definitely cause some damage. So before traveling, always double checking your travel straps are latched. That way you're not causing any damage. Light switch for the bathroom is just on the wall. Pretty much your standard bathroom. You've got your main GFI plug on the wall here. If you ever have an outlet that doesn't work, this would be the first place I'd look. You got reset in the middle, test on the bottom. Then you do have your little central vac system. The tools for that are located underneath the front bed. It's also where you're going to find your exterior griddle and little table setup for the outside. Pulling that over. That's how you're going to get access to the bag. You do get one bag included with the unit, and we could get you some more through our parts department. Just contacting them for a quote, and we could get you some vacuum bags in case you needed them. How that works is, once that's all lined up and the bag's in place, slide that guy over, insert your tool, turn it on. It's going to start sucking stuff into that bag. You close that off, and you open up this guy. That's a dustpan system they added. Just keep it in mind whatever you're putting in there, you don't want anything sharp because it does go into that bag. If it punctures the bag, it can make a mess. Really, it's just for dust, gravel, and dirt, so just be mindful of that whenever you're using it. Other than that, you got your standard bathroom, storage all around, just of course, again, being mindful of drains and water lines. Another travel strap for the door for the bedroom. The bedroom, all the lights are on their own center push button. Sorry, they aren't on their own center push buttons. Light switch is over here on the passenger side, turning it on right down there. Turns on the lights inside here. Another fire exit, which is the same way as the one in the back. It's just not as big. Your standard bed area. Lifting up the foot of the bed, you got some storage space, which you're gonna find the box for your TV, your propane quick connect lines, your griddle, as well as some other goodies. At the front, a cool little feature, you got this big window up front. It does open up. You're just having to undo these latches. These knobs here Once you open it, it's going to want to close back on you. Once you open it, tightening up these knobs will allow it to hold into its place. Then you can slide up your bug screen in case you want a nice breeze inside here. Cool little feature I thought. And then it does come with a blackout shade as well in case you want to sleep in a little bit. Then behind the camera person, we got our TV back here. So if you want to mount a TV, this is going to be the best place to do so inside the bedroom. Little coax outlet here. You're going to notice this black button. This is what turns the antenna on the roof. Now that also improves radio frequency and cell phone frequency. So whenever you get to your campsite, I do recommend turning it on, leaving it on. And whenever you're done, turning it off because it does draw battery power. Other than that, that's it for this unit here. If you have any other questions, feel free to give us a call.